Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruber. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Kathy Gruber.
And I'm Jason Mefford. And today we're back kind of in a solo duo episode, right?
Woo-hoo!
Just the two of us going at it today and talking to you about a little fairy tale today. And it's kind of interesting, as we go through and talk about this, you'll hopefully be able to see how everything ties together, right? But we kind of wanted to start with a little experience that Kathy had as a participant of a program that she went through just recently, because I think it helps us to kind of understand and step into, right, being sometimes the person that we need to be, that we're afraid to let show.
Yeah.
So, Kathy, give us a little backstory and then let's get talking about it.
Yeah. So I just went through a 3-day coaching course and it was very intense. And it was just, by the end of the day, we were all fried because we were learning so many new skills. And what's tough is I've been doing, the work that I've been doing, the coaching, the hypnosis, the massage, where I've been helping people handle things and helping them solve problems for 30 years. Mm-hmm. So to let all of that go and now try to practice something I've done for a day and a half, it was tough. I felt a little beat up by the end. Lots of Magic Castle this past weekend. But one of the things we did is we were specifically talking about being versus doing. And when I study with Eckhart Tolle, when he talks about being versus doing, it was something very different. This was actually tapping into your being, like who you are, your personality, your traits, that sort of thing. And we did this really cool exercise where they sat you in front of the room and they had everybody shout out things that they noticed about you that were positive. And so I got things, and for those of you who know me or who've been watching the show, you'll probably agree with this. So I got things like bold, brave, spontaneous, fun, get things done, smart, direct, adventurous, risk taker, get shit done, vivacious, independent, strong, that kind of stuff. Now, that's what I portray to the world. That's my mask, if you remember going back to some of those first things. And then what people said was what they wanted to see more of, traits that they saw in us or things that they wanted us to bring forward more. And I got tenderness, insightfulness, patience.
With me, right?
Yeah, just patience. Humility, playfulness, more chill, more relaxed, more being, less doing, that kind of stuff. And then they picked archetypes or animals or characters that they thought embodied that. We put it on a name tag, and then we had to do our next coaching session as that character. And people ended up with things. There was a couple in our group that ended up with, God, what was she? Stinky can dancer, stoned hippie, like all this kind of stuff. So the things that were tossed off to me were bunny, koala, needy, vulnerable teenager, heartbroken teenager. And what we ended up with was Snow White.
Snow White.
Which is sort of funny because, and I know I've shared this with you, and I think we talked about it on the show, is pretty much every morning a blue jay shows up at my house and it sits on my hand and I feed it. And so multiple people have said, you're a Disney princess, you're like Snow White. So it was sort of funny that they picked Snow White for me. But what was interesting is the next coaching, we paired up, and the next coaching session we did, we had to do as that character. And they were specific, and it doesn't have to be a good coaching session, just live that character for the next 8 minutes. 8 minutes is a very long time to be Snow White because you can only skip and spin and talk about animals and princes for so long. So we started out and I talked about how, why don't you just sit in nature and, the animals have all the answers and, to just sit and just be peaceful and the animals will come to you and the answers will come to you. And the more I was addressing her problem, because she did actually give me a problem to address, I suddenly realized, we have this saboteur. We have this thing that keeps us from doing stuff. And so I made that the Wicked Witch with the apple. And I said, Snow White wants to be kind to the witch. You have to be kind to your saboteur. But if you bring in these 7 helpers, the 7 dwarfs.
And I'm dopey, by the way.
Okay. I didn't say it.
I did.
I'm dopey, by the way. That's the tagline.
That's going to be lower thirds on this one.
We're so pulling that clip out of there, and that's going to be our next ad. I'm dopey, by the way.
Yeah.
So I ended up, I said, what are these 7 things that you can pull in? And she actually had to really think about that. And she's like, well, strength and compassion, and so it ended up actually being a really good exercise. Wasn't necessarily the point of, turning that into a good coaching session, but what it made me do was get outside of my problem solving, very direct, very self, and kind of go la 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 la. And if you just look around and see, it slowed me down, and it pulled out a part of my personality that I'm not used to showing, especially in this environment. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is like those traits in yourself that you might keep hidden, or that you can tap into to look at a problem or a situation from a different perspective. So it was actually it was one of my favorite activities as an actor. Give me a character. I'm happy. No, I kind of wanted to be the stinky Cancan or the stoned hippie, because it's one of my favorite characters. But yeah, so it was really fun. So.
Well, and I like this too, because I'm always trying to look for analogies as well, right? To be able to help when I'm teaching people or when I'm coaching people. And I think actually, hearing you kind of talk through that, it's great for us to kind of analogize. You can take something like Snow White and you can actually analogize it, because every story, there's, the hero's journey and, all the other stuff that kind of goes along with it. And you can use things like that. And I think it's interesting too, because it's, when people were going around and giving you like some of those traits that they saw in you, but they wanted to see more of, I think it's a great opportunity for us to be open and to think about and to accept feedback from people.
Yes.
Because one of my mentors, we were at a mastermind group together, and the first day, maybe I was a little bit more reticent, because it was a new group. I'm a severe introvert. I know people don't realize that, but I am. And so maybe I wasn't as open at that the first day. And he told me, he said, Jason, I see you like a turtle. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, so I see almost kind of like you're like a turtle walking along, and you keep pulling your head back in, and then you'll stick your head out, and then you'll pull your head back in, and then you'll stick it out, right? And so on my vision board over here is actually a picture of a turtle to remind me to keep my head out, right? Because and the more that I've tried to do that and step into being, because that's what he said. He's like, when your head is out, you are amazing, right? And it's like, oh, gee, so why do I keep putting my head back in? Well, again, there's the whole mindset stuff that we're all trying to work on, right?
Sure.
But I think, like you said, all of us have these qualities that sometimes we try to hide. And we hide them for different reasons. Again, I mean, like you said, most people see you as the tough girl, kind of a mindset, because that's what you are, but you're so much more than just that.
Well, and if you look at my Facebook stuff, I'm traveling around the world, I'm trying new food, I'm on the trapeze, I'm doing hip hop, I can conquer anything and and people forget that I have really shitty days and I have horrible experiences. And, you're one of the few people that have, there have been days before we started the podcast, I'm sitting here in tears, very few people get to see that side of me. And I've had a couple of friends who have kind of looked at me across the table and said, I see the scared little kid in you, and it takes another scared little kid to see that in me, unless I let it out. But what's interesting is, I'm an extrovert. I used to be an actor. You tell me I'm Snow White, I'm going to frickin' be Snow White. Like, because the other thing we did is we had to go around the circle and we had to be that character for just like 5 seconds. And so I walked through and I kind of skipped and I kissed everybody and hugged them, and, and everyone thought that was hilarious. But what was great is there was a guy in this class, and he was so controlled. He was brilliant. Like, he would say maybe 3 words at a time, but they were the 3 most brilliant things that could have come out of him. He was so calculated and so just,
Mhm.
And when we were talking about, when we were tossing out his good characteristics that he showed us, it was, direct, it was controlled, it was, and we said we wanted to see him cut loose. We wanted to see him be kind of mean. We wanted to see him be crass. And when we were going around the circle and we got to do our time, I think they had made him like a drunk, chaotic artist was what they wanted to see. And so he was tossing paper, but he stood up, he looked at everybody and he went, "Fuck yeah!" And then he sat back down. And that's what he did. He just had this moment of cutting loose. He just like vomited out this just profanity. And it was so, I was crying. I was laughing so hard because that's the aspect of him we wanted to see, was this like chaos as opposed to.
Yeah. So calculated
and everybody embodied that. And I know it was so tough for some of the introverts because tell me to do anything, I'm pretty much up for it. But the people who were really backwards, there was one woman from Brazil who, again, she was so quiet. She was so shy. They wanted her to be a drag queen. And she like tied her shirt.
What you talking about?
She put her, she let her hair down. She started twerking and we're all like, "Oh my God," because it was a side of her we hadn't seen before. And it was so fun to let that out. And the feedback that we got as we were then doing the coaching, it was probably some of the best coaching of the weekend, even though our objective was not to coach well, so it was just to find that part in your personality and let it out. So I'm glad you're sticking your little turtle head out. I appreciate
I'm
that.
sticking my little turtle head out. Well, and it's funny because like you said, right, I think the more that we embrace, I know we talked before about like embrace your weirdness, right? But there's certain sides of us that we don't let out enough, and we need to let it out more. Sometimes we're held back because maybe we're a little fearful of what people might think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, you pretending to be Snow White and acting like Snow White, that brings up some vulnerabilities, right? I mean, you're the tough kid, right? You're going out kicking ass, taking names kind of thing. And now all of a sudden to be showing the world that you're also vulnerable, that you're also caring, can sometimes be a little scary, right? Yeah. And so for me, it's even the same thing. It's like when I'm sticking my little turtle head out there and I'm saying some things that are sometimes a little crazy, right? I mean, one of my favorite lines from Song is Billy Joel, and he says, "You may be right, I may be crazy, but it just may be a lunatic you're looking for." And I just love that, and have to try to remember that as I'm sticking my little turtle head out, that I think the world needs more craziness. They need more people to let loose, like that guy jumping up and going, "Fuck yeah!"
That's awesome.
Sometimes we need to let go a little bit more because it's more authentic. It's more who we are, and it actually, I'm sure after you did that exercise as a group, the dynamic within the group was completely different, right?
Oh, it was totally different. And one of the, Jeff, who was one of our facilitators, we had two facilitators, a male and a female, and he's this very sweet, very sort of soft-spoken, funny, kind of wacky gay man. And when he did that exercise, when he was going through the program, they gave his name tag said drill sergeant.
Oh.
And he said what helped him in the coaching moving forward was, he would coach, he would give an assignment, he would make a request. And, the next week the person would show up and say, "I didn't have time to do that thing." And he'd go, "Oh, I understand. Okay." And he realized there were times where the drill sergeant had to come out and be like, "Look, you said you were going to do that thing. You didn't do that thing. I'm holding you accountable."
Right.
And so he was able to tap into that drill sergeant. And I can see there are times that, excuse me, I can tap into that more. Look, I know that you're going through a lot right now. I don't have to be the drill sergeant. I can pull back and be Snow White and be a little more tender, a little more quiet, and just sort of let that sit in that space until something happens. Now I do that, but this just kind of put it into I don't know. It was an interesting perspective. And it's also fascinating to see what people see, to see what people notice about you. That's so interesting. So oh, good.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, because I think we don't see so much of the time what's there, right? And so to me, part of it too is kind of the exercise of even asking people, in our close circle, that same kind of question. What are some qualities that I have that you just don't see me, showing that often? What would you like to see more of?
Yeah.
Can actually be very, very telling, because again, I mean, we've got this whole perception of what's actually going on in reality, but we don't really. I mean, we don't see reality clearly, and unless we have other people, helping us to see that, we're not going to know what to bring out, right?
Right.
And I think I love this too, because there's the be do have model versus have do be.
Yeah, talk about that, because we did a little bit off air, and I've not heard it.
You've not heard
way.
that before? Okay,
Mm.
so I know like Jim Fortin talks about it all the time. There's a lot of people that are talking about this now, but the idea is, so many of us say, when I have whatever, then I will do this,
Mm.
and then I will finally be this particular person. Okay.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And the problem is you have to flip it around.
Yeah.
Because that model, you will never have everything, and if you don't do the things, you'll never have it, and
Mm-hmm.
then you'll never be. And so you have to flip that model around, and you have to step into being that person to begin with, doing those things that person would do, and then you will have what that
Mm.
person would have.
Gotcha. So it's like, if I have more time, I could do more marketing, and then I could be a more successful speaker.
Correct. Right.
Yeah,
As
that doesn't
opposed
work.
to that doesn't work, right? So you have to kind of flip it around. But I loved
Mm-hmm.
it, because kind of this experience that you're talking about is almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Be that other person.
Yeah.
I mean, you were an actor. We're all actors in some way, right? You just happen to do it professionally. But when you're acting in a role, it's the same sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're becoming that person, and you're living or you're acting that way, right? And by doing that, you're going to have, and you're going to be doing and
Yeah.
having things differently. So
I
it's the
love it.
same thing, with your Snow White experience. There's a lot of Snow White characteristics in Kathy that can help people,
Yeah.
but until you be the Snow White, those things don't come out.
Right. Or to quote one of my hypnotherapy friends, pretend you're that thing, and then pretend you're not pretending.
Yeah. Right.
I love that. I say that in session, and you can see them kind of going, "What?" Yeah, pretend you're relaxed, and then pretend you're not pretending.
Mhm.
And your brain goes, ah, and then you're relaxed. Or
Well,
you're
and
Snow
it's
White, or you're a turtle, or
and it's that fake it until you make it
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? I mean, it's the same thing. If you get a new role, and we've just been talking about Snow White, but if it's, whatever else, let's say it's Stinky Can Dancer, right?
Yes,
Yeah, you wanted to be that anyway.
I did.
You would have to become, or kind of step into that person,
Mm-hmm.
right, in order to act that part. And
Yep.
so, what I loved about it is we all need to be acting more, fake it till
Mm-hmm.
you make it kind of thing. If you see yourself and you want to be someone else, then be it now and fake it until you make it. Because the more you do that, the more you're actually going to become that actual person, because you're going to be doing those things that person would do.
Exactly. Well, and if you think about it, I mean, and I remember doing this exercise years ago. I don't remember why I did it, but it was, and I think we talked a little bit about this when we did the masks episode, like almost a year ago. We've been doing this a long time now. This is
I know.
awesome. Talking about those different aspects of the personality. It's like, I'm a very different person around my parents, as I am around my clients, as I am around the boyfriend, as I am around you, as I am around, we have these different aspects of our personality we pull out. And I remember actually journaling about it and writing them down. It's like, I have, sassy Kathy, and I have, it's like looking at, like, naming those parts of yourself. And then when you're in different situations, what aspect do I have to bring out? Do I need to be drill sergeant Kathy today? Do I need to be soft and patient and just sit quietly librarian Kathy? Do I need to be, because we have all those aspects of ourselves. We are not one dimensional. We are written in such a way, our characters are written in such a way that we have all these deep aspects to us. So when you're in a situation, whether it's, comforting someone who just lost somebody, or whether you're in a business meeting, or whether you're dealing with your kids, what part of you do you have to pull out? What characteristic do you need in that situation? And if you look at it as simply being, different aspects of you, then we're more functional and we're more productive as human beings, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, because there's a time for the drill sergeant and there's a time for the Snow White.
Yeah.
And we have to feel comfortable, again, being able to step into that, sticking our little turtle head out and realizing that somebody might go, oh, Kathy, you're soft because you cried, or Jason cried because Jason does cry too. I know about things you wouldn't even think. Right.
Oh, I know. And that's what's so funny is I cry at and I told somebody that. I said, I cry at I cry at Hallmark commercials, I cry at sporting events, I cry during I cannot listen to the national anthem without tearing up. So I'm I am this huge softie. And I think because I do feel so much, and it's funny because one of the things they said they wanted to see more of was empathy. And it's oh my God, I constantly in empathy, but people wouldn't know that because I'm on the trapeze. I'm Wonder Woman, and so at the very end, the last thing we did is we all went around the circle and said anything we wanted to in closing, anything we were thankful for, grateful for, we learned, da, da, da. And as I started to talk, I thanked the facilitators for the feedback, even though it was tough sometimes. And I thanked everybody for being there and for truly showing up. And I barely got the word showing out of my mouth and I burst into tears. And I'm sitting there sobbing in the circle, and you could see these 21 other people kind of going,
Snow White's back.
And I went, fucking Snow White, you have, and everyone started laughing. And I'm like, you wanted vulnerable here, because I feel all that emotion. I feel all that stuff. And so I've realized one of the things that's a challenge for me is I either feel all of it or I shut it down completely. There is no dribbles of emotion for me. It's either full-blown crying or I don't feel anything. So as a defense mechanism, just to protect myself from feeling everything, I don't let myself feel very much in front of other people. So, and I'm aware of that because I can't walk around crying all day. I'd end up in a rubber room again.
Again.
That was a fun weekend.
The walls are so nice. And
oh my God. Yeah. You could just bounce around.
It's not the ones though where they stick the Velcro on the wall and they stick to the wall, right?
That would be so fun. Let's go do that.
Like a bounce house where you throw yourself up against the wall and stick.
I would love to do that. Find a place we'll do that for our retreat.
Yeah, there we go. No, but I think it's because like you said, you can't go around crying all the time. But I know for me, and I know you've kind of expressed too, there's more sides of us, there's more dimensions of everybody. And for everybody that's listening, it's the same thing. You're not one-dimensional, you're multi-dimensional. And I'm sure there's more of those dimensions that need to be shown to the world because people want to see it. Right. And so just like in that exercise that you had where people went around and said, hey, we want to see more of the soft side. We want to see the whatever. If you reach out and ask other people in your life, they're going to tell you some of those other things that they want to show up. And again, if it's in alignment with who you want to be, that may be some of the stuff that's actually holding you back.
Yes.
Is your fear of actually showing some of that stuff. Right. So when I think about, the kind of person that I want to become or that I see myself as, I realize that there's probably certain things I need to stop doing and certain things I need to start doing. Right. And that's just what we're kind of talking about here.
Yeah.
And actually step into it and act as if, and then you effectively become that person. And so again, this is not just, hocus pocus kind of stuff. We were talking before about, even in acting, right? There's some actors who, guys like Daniel Day-Lewis who win multiple Academy Awards.
Meryl
Streep. You know why? Because they become that person like the whole time they're filming. They don't turn it off. They become like this different person when they're filming, whether they're on or off set.
Yep.
And the more that they become and be that person, the better performance they can give. And it's the same thing for us in our lives.
Absolutely.
If you want to be playing whatever, right, whatever your imagination is or whatever your goal is, you got to show up and be that person, and you'll become that person.
Yeah. To just, and we're blew through another half hour. Just from the acting thing, when I was directing, there were so many times where, you know, we'd be in rehearsal and it would have to be a kissing scene or a really emotional scene. And the actor would say, oh, well, you know, I'll do it for the show. And it's like, no, because if I don't see you do it in rehearsal, I don't trust that you can do it for the show. Like, you need to be that now. So if you want to be successful, if you want to have a good relationship, if you want to have that joy and that happiness, then you've got to do it now. You don't wait until it comes, just like you said, reversing those things of, you know, you've got to be it first and then do it and then have it. What are you waiting for? Go be that thing. Pretend, and then pretend you're not pretending.
Yep. Well, because eventually, the longer that you pretend, you're not pretending anymore, right? The longer you do it, you're not going to be pretending. You're just going to be that person.
Yep. Who knew Snow White could be so deep?
Oh, it's very deep. We could take it off to we could do a whole nother episode about, the allegory and the meaning behind all this stuff. But yeah, we won't.
Oh, and the fairy tale thing. And yeah, that would actually be kind of a fun episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Snow White. I can be reached.
Oh, well, oh, yeah.
SnowWhite.com. I don't think that's my website.
No, I'm pretty sure Disney probably owns that one.
We should check. If they don't, I'm snagging it this afternoon. So, any final thought?
I think that's good for me.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so whistle while you work. Tap into those 7 little men. No, that's not it. Tap into those 7 qualities of yourself. Go conquer the witch. I'm Kathy Groover. I can be reached at kathygroover.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. And we'll catch you on a future episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
See ya.